Hi there, this is Patricia from patriciafenty.com, and today I have a tutorial on how to crochet this really lovely, very warm blanket. This is using the basket weave stitch. It's a very dense stitch and it's a very warm stitch. And this is really a beautiful blanket. It could be used for baby to lay on the floor, good for winter walks. It could be used as a lap blanket for someone to keep them extra warm. So this blanket is 30 inches by 30 inches. I will show you how you can make this any size that you like. And so this pattern does use a lot of yarn, and just by comparison, so for this size, 30 inches by 30 inches, I used almost 3 balls of the Bernat yarn, so nearly 1,000 yards of yarn for this blanket. In comparison, this blanket, which is 27 inches by 27 inches, it's a beginner's baby blanket. This one only used 595 yards of yarn. So this one uses quite a bit more. So it does use a lot of yarn, but it is very warm. Now the other thing I want to say about this is if you have any tendency for tendonitis, carpal tunnel, or any pain with your crocheting arm, I actually don't recommend this pattern. It took me a long time to make this because I do have some issues with my arm. You're doing these front post and back post double crochets, and there's a lot of this movement. So if you have any weakness in the arm, I would give this pattern a pass. Yeah, it took me quite a few months to actually make this because I could only do a few rows at a time. So just being upfront with you about that. If you have a strong arm, then let's carry on. Now for this crochet project, you can use any number 4 medium weight or worsted weight yarn that you like. I'm using the Bernat premium yarn. It's 100% acrylic yarn. It has 7 ounces or 360 yards of yarn per ball, and I really love this yarn. It's very practical. It washes up nicely and comes in so many colors. And again, you can use any yarn you like, and you'll need a total of 3 balls of the premium yarn or 1,080 yards of any other yarn. And this is soft heather gray, and I really love this color. So 3 balls of that. You'll need some scissors, a darning needle, and a 5mm crochet hook and some stitch markers. All right, so we're going to start by creating a foundation chain. So you'll create a slip knot, and if you're new to crochet, I do have my beginner crochet series that shows you all the basics of crochet. So put the slip knot on your hook, and we'll create a foundation chain of 101 chains. Now, I always recommend when you're working on any project like this, you want your foundation chain to be very loose. If you're not proficient with your tension, you can go up to a 5.5mm or 6mm hook to create your foundation chain. Otherwise, you can do a very loose chain. So yarn over, pull the yarn through. That's 1 chain, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through, and just make it a nice loose foundation chain. So you want to do 101 chains, and that's where I like to use the stitch markers. I put them in every 20 to 25 chains just so that I don't lose count. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you at the end. All right, so here's my 101 chains, and I forgot to mention that the gauge for this pattern is every 13 stitches equals 4 inches, and every 8.5 rows equals 4 inches, if you're concerned about the gauge. Of course, this is a blanket of 30 by 30 inches. If you want to make it bigger or smaller, the pattern repeat is 6 stitches. So you can either add or subtract 6 stitches, and that'll add or subtract 2 inches to the width of your blanket. So you would do that, and once you have the chain, the number of chains that you want, you'll do a chain one for a turning chain and work back with a row of single crochet. Now if you've been using a longer crochet hook to get your loose foundation chain, you can switch back to your regular hook. So now we'll go back with a row of single crochet, and we're going to work not into the front loop but into the back bump of the stitch. So this is your turning chain, so you'll go into that back bump of the stitch at the back of the chain stitch and do a single crochet. So yarn over, pull the yarn through, and yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So going into the next bump, put the hook through, bring your yarn through, you'll have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And you'll have done another single crochet. And you'll just work a single crochet all the way back, working into that back bump, and when you're done you should have 101 single crochets, or the number of chains you have for your beginning chain, not including your turning chain. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you at the end of row 1. Great, so here we are at the end of row 1. So I just have a couple of more single crochets to do, and that's 101 single crochets. So now you will chain 3 and turn your work, or you can turn your work and chain 3. It's totally up to you. And now we'll work back with a row of double crochets. So this is your turning chain, that's the stitch you came out of. So going into the next stitch right behind that, you'll yarn over, you'll go under both loops of the single crochet, bring the yarn through, you'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And then do another double crochet into the next stitch, going under both loops, bring your yarn up from behind, you'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So you're just going to do a row of double crochet all the way back into that row of single crochet, and at the end of this row you will have 101 double crochets, including your beginning chain 3. So I'll see you at the end. Now coming to the end of row 2, I have one more double crochet to do, and again that's a total of 101 double crochets, or however many chains you started with. So at this point you don't have to count the stitches anymore. Once you have these first 2 rows set up, the pattern will work out. So now we're going to start working on the pattern, although this is not a row repeat. So you're going to chain 2 and turn your work, and what we're going to do is we're going to be doing 3 front post double crochets around the post of the double crochets from the previous row, and then 3 back post double crochets, and then 3 front post and 3 back posts. So I'll show you how these work. So you'll skip the first double crochet, and going into the second double crochet we'll do a front post double crochet. So yarn over, you're going to put your hook in behind that post, lifting the post to the front towards you, and then yarn over, pull the yarn through, and work a double crochet. And that is a front post double crochet. So we'll do that again. So yarn over, going into the next double crochet from the previous row, put your hook from in behind, pull the post to the front, yarn over, pull the yarn in behind that post, and work your double crochet. And then again, yarn over, going into the next double crochet, putting the hook in behind, lifting that post to the front, grab your yarn, pull it in behind that post, and then work your double crochet. Whoops, there we go. Now we're going to do a back post double crochet. This is a little more tricky to do. So into the next stitch, into the 4th stitch, you'll yarn over, and you're going in from behind your work. So you'll bring your hook in behind that double crochet post, come in front of the post with your hook, and then go back underneath. It's a little bit hard to see. So the hook is going over top of that post, and you're pushing that post to the back of your work. Then you'll yarn over and pull your yarn in front of that post. And so you're working into the back of the row now, and then you'll complete your double crochet. And that's a back post double crochet. So again, yarn over, coming in from behind, going into the next double crochet post, go on top of the post, push it down to the back, bring it out on the other side, and your hook is now in the back of your work. Grab your yarn, pull it through the front of the post. This is the tricky part, is pulling that yarn through. So now you've got your 3 loops on your hook, and you'll complete your double crochet. And we'll do that again. Yarn over, going into the next stitch, bringing your hook from behind over top of that post, pushing that post to the back and bringing your hook out into the back. Grab your yarn from behind, pull it through in the front of that post, and complete your double crochet. And now you'll do 3 front post double crochets. So you have to be careful that you don't work back into the same stitch here, so you can even count. So here we are at 7 stitches, so you're working into the 8th stitch, and you'll work your front post double crochet. So yarn over, so going into the front of the double crochet, you'll work your double crochet, pushing the post to the front. Yeah, again, yarn over and pushing that post to the front, working in the front of your work. Do another double crochet and yarn over and do a 3rd double crochet, front post double crochet into that 3rd double crochet and work your front post double crochet. And then you'll do 3 back post double crochets. So yarn over, going into the back of your work and pushing the post to the back, pull the yarn through and work your double crochet. And again, going into the next stitch, bringing the hook from the back of your work, push that post back, yarn over, pull the yarn through and complete your double crochet. And one more back post, working into the back of your work with your back post double crochet. And it's a little bit awkward to do those back post double crochets, but once you get used to it, you'll get into the flow of things. So you have 3 front posts, 3 back posts, 3 front posts, and 3 back posts, and you'll repeat that all the way along, and keeping track of your stitches that you are working into the correct stitch and you don't work back into your previous stitch here. So carry on, and I'll see you at the end of the row. So coming to the end of row 3, you should have just done 3 back post double crochets, and you should have 4 stitches left. So now you'll do 3 front post double crochets, and that's 2, and then 3, and then you have your turning chain from the previous row, and in this case the turning chain was 3 chains. From here on in it'll be 2 chains. So you'll work a half double crochet into the 3rd chain of that turning chain. Now I'm showing a double crochet here. It should have been a half double crochet. Sorry about that. So that's the end of row 3. Now this is where the pattern repeat starts. So you can chain 2 and turn your work. And I recommend to use a stitch marker at the beginning of this pattern repeat, because this will help to keep track of the row repeat. There's a 4-row repeat. So now you'll skip your first stitch, and for row 4 you will start with a back post double crochet, and you'll do 3 back post double crochets in each stitch. And that's 2, and then 1 more back post double crochet. And you can see this is a little bit tricky to work into, but you'll get the hang of it. So there's the 3rd back post double crochet, and now you work front post double crochets into these stitches. So you'll do 3 front post double crochets into the next 3 stitches. And as you work along, you'll see how the woven pattern works out. So now into these stitches, they're the front post double crochets from the previous row, but when you turn it around, it looks like a back post. And so working into those, you're working into those with a back post double crochet, or 3 back post double crochets, 1 in each stitch. So working 3 back post double crochets in the next 3 stitches, and now you'll work the front post double crochets, and these were the back post double crochets from the previous row. And so then you'll do a front post double crochet into the next 3 stitches, and it's easy to keep track here because you're doing 3 stitches into the previous 3 stitches. So you'll carry along, and you'll skip your first stitch, and you do your 3 back post double crochets and 3 front posts, and then 3 back posts, and then 3 front post double crochets, and you'll repeat that all the way along until you get to the end of this row. So I'll see you there. All right, so coming to the end of row 4, you should have done 3 back post double crochets, and then you have your turning chain from the previous row, and you'll work a half double crochet into the second chain of that turning chain. Now I'm going to show a double crochet here, but it should be a half double crochet. I'm sorry, I figured this out later on. So that is the end of row 4. And your first pattern repeat, and you can see how beautifully that pattern is beginning to work up. So for row 5, you'll chain 2 and turn your work, and you will just be repeating row 4. So you skip that first double crochet, and you'll do 3 back post double crochets into the next 3 stitches. So row 4 and 5, you begin each of those rows with the back post double crochets. And you just repeat that all the way along. So we're doing 3 back post double crochets, and now I'll do 3 front post double crochets. So just repeating row 4 all the way along. It looks different because you're working into a different part of the design. So that is the pattern. So go ahead and skip your first stitch and do 3 back post double crochets and 3 front post double crochets, and you'll repeat that all the way along, and we'll see you at the end. Welcome back. Coming to the end of row 5, you'll have done your 3 front post double crochets, and you'll finish with your 3 back post double crochets. And so we'll finish this row, and you'll go into the second chain of that turning chain from the previous row. And now I get it, and here's the half post double crochet. Here's where I figured out my pattern. I'm not going to unravel it all. So at the end of this row, you finish with a half double crochet. And that's because these rows are kind of squashed down, and I totally missed that when I was doing the first part of this pattern. So it needs to be a half double crochet at the end of each row. So that's the end of row 5. So for row 6, you'll chain 2 and turn your work. and you'll skip that first stitch, skipping that first stitch, and now you'll do 3 front post double crochets. So you'll do 3 front post double crochets into the first 3 stitches and 3 front post double crochets. And now you'll do 3 back post double crochets in the next 3 stitches. And whoops. And there we go. See, and when these are squashed, they can be a little bit hard to get into, but you'll get into the swing of things. There we go. There's my second back post double crochet and the third back post double crochet. And then 3 front post double crochets. So you repeat that all the way to the end of this row, and I will see you there. Great, so here we are at the end of row 6. You should finish off with 3 front post double crochets, just like how you began the row, and then you'll finish with a half double crochet into the second chain of that chain 2 from the previous row. And then you can turn your work and chain 2 or chain 2 and turn your work. It's totally up to you. And now you'll work back and you'll repeat row 6 where you'll skip your first stitch, and then going into the second double crochet, you'll do a front post double crochet. And you'll do 3 front post double crochets into those 3 stitches, and then 3 back post double crochets into the next 3 stitches. And that is the pattern. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you at the end of row 7. All right, so coming to the end of row 7, I've just done 3 front post double crochets, and you'll finish this row with a half double crochet into the second chain of that beginning chain 2 from the previous row. And then chain 2 and turn your work. So that is the pattern repeat. You want to repeat rows 4 through 7 another 14 times. And just a reminder, the row 4 repeat starts where you skip the first half double crochet and you do your back post double crochets. And I kind of remember this by going B comes, back post comes before F front post. So row 4 and 5 begin with the back post double crochets in the first 3 stitches, and then row 6 and 7 repeats start with the front post double crochets. And I like to use the stitch markers here because it really does help. The rows kind of compact, and it can be a little bit tricky to keep track of your rows. So the stitch markers at the beginning of the row 4 repeat, it'll be easy to keep track that you're doing 2 rows of back post double crochets and then 2 rows of front post double crochets, and then you mark it again and carry on. And that also helps you to keep track of how many repeats you're doing. So we do want to do 14 more repeats. So carry on, and you can see how lovely this is. It just magically works up into this really beautiful pattern. So carry on, and I'll see you once we've gotten a little further along. Welcome back. So I've just come to the end of my first ball of yarn, and I need to join on another ball of yarn. And you can see how this is crocheting up. It is a very bulky stitch and thick blanket, but it is so lovely. It's such a warm blanket. You can see how beautifully that's working up. And these stitch markers, they have been a saving grace for me because it's definitely helping me keep track as to which row repeat I need to be doing next. Another thing I just want to point out, at the end of the row, you might want to just check the edge of your blanket, and it should always have this wave in it. And if by chance you have a straight section, it means you've got to a really good part of your TV show or whatever you're watching and you did all the same stitches. You would have done front post here, front post, and front post instead of front post, back post, front post. And it can happen if you're just sort of a little absent-minded. So at the end of the row, just double check and make sure you've got this nice wave going on, and that's a good time to catch any mistakes. So to join on, you can join on any way you like. You can do a magic knot. I'm just going to join on as I go. So I'm just in the front post double crochets. So I'll go in and I'll begin my front post double crochet. I've got 3 loops on my hook, and at this point I'll bring in the new yarn, and I'm bringing it in at the base of the stitch. If I was joining on a different color, I would actually join it on here at the top of the stitch. I would do the first pull through of the double crochet and I would join a new color at the top of the stitch, but I'm joining on the same color, so I join on at the base of the stitch. And so just finish that double crochet, pull your tails over to the side, and just carry on working your front post double crochet. And then I'll be going into the back post there, and then you'll just have your tail ends here that you can darn in and just carry on. So there you go. I'll be carrying on, and I'll see you once we get to the top of the blanket. All right, here we are. I'm at the point in the blanket where I want to finish off the top row of the blanket, so it looks the same as the bottom row, the beginning of the blanket. So of course I'm making this blanket 30 inches by 30 inches. You can carry on and make this any height that you like, but you'll want to finish it in this same way. So what I have here is I have a total of 15 four-row repeats for a total of 60 rows. Plus there were the 3 beginning rows, the setup rows. So I've just finished row 63 here, and I've turned my work. Now what we're going to do is we're going to begin another pattern repeat. So chain 2 and turn your work, or turn your work and chain 2. And you are going to start with a row of back post double crochets. So you're repeating the row 4 repeat, starting with a back post double crochet pattern, and whatever height you want to make your blanket, just make sure you do 1 more row of the pattern repeat, starting, you'll finish your 4-row repeat, and you'll do 1 more row with the back post double crochets. And so go ahead and do that pattern repeat all the way along, and I'll see you at the end. Great. So coming to the end of this row, this 1 more row, and you're finishing up with 3 back post double crochets, and just finishing this extra row, and then doing the half double crochet in the second chain of that beginning chain 2, and there you go. And now for the very last row, all we're going to do is a row of single crochets. So chain 1 and turn your work, and then you have there's your chain 1. So going into the first stitch behind that, going under both loops, you'll do a single crochet. And then going under both loops of each stitch, you'll do a single crochet to the end of the row. So go ahead and do that, and I will see you there. Great. And now coming to the end of this last row, single crochet. So you'll have your set of 3 double crochets. So you'll do 3 single crochets. And this is where it's a little bit tricky. You want to make sure to get that one last stitch, doing a single crochet into that second chain of that turning chain. And then you do a chain 1 to fasten off and cut your tail, pull that through, and then you just have your tail ends to darn in, and you can do that on the other side. And I'll take all my stitch markers out and come back for the final reveal. Here we go. The blanket is all done, and I can't even tell which is the top and which is the bottom. It just looks so great, and I can't fit it all in the screen, but this blanket is perfect that you don't have to do a border around it. It's nice just as it is. Of course, if you want to do a border, you can do that, but this is such a beautiful pattern. Look how lovely that is and how that crocheted up. And this is how much yarn I had left at the end of the third ball. So it is a very dense stitch and it does use a lot of yarn, but that makes for a very warm and cozy blanket. So again, this would be perfect for baby to lay on, for a little floor blanket. It would be great for a lap blanket. And because it is so heavy, it would even work as a weighted blanket. And that provides a lot of comfort to some people. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more creative and inspiring videos. Thank you for joining me.